invite you to read much more about him there in our programs for the day, but I just wanted to lift up. You see that he's been highlighted by Ebony Magazine as one of the 100 influential Americans. He's been highlighted by Jet Magazine, and he has been lifted up by all of the black journalists across this country. He's a member of the Alpha Phi Alpha fraternity. And I'm so glad to share. We have a common thing. And Brother Tafiq, you appreciate this. And Brother Kevin and Reverend Glenn and all my other golf buddies. He's an avid golfer. I like that. Something about that I like. So we were just chit-chatting and finding out that Tiger Woods is in the lead of the British Open right now. Now we say, why do I mention that? Well, that brother has been an ambassador. As a black man playing a game that they kept us out, didn't want us to play. And because of that, he is a man who's been kissed by the sun, who they had written off. And God has brought him back, giving him strength, giving him courage, and to be on foreign soil where folks come out just to look at this black man who's playing a game where he ain't supposed to be. But I'm so glad that when I find a brother who cherishes that same love, it thrills my heart. But more than that, it thrills my heart that he loves the Lord.
All right.
Everybody loves the Lord ought to be able to share of the goodness of the Lord. If you would, lift up your hand with me and say, Brother Martin, speak the word.
Speak the word.
Amen. After our men shall come and share with us, the next voice you should hear is our brother who's going to speak the word today in the person of the brother Roland Martin. Let's give God a hand clap of praise.
Well, good morning. Good morning. All right, glad to be here, glad to see all of you here. Let me thank Pastor Hill and all the men for inviting me here to speak. It has been a busy weekend. I was in Colorado on Friday. The brother Robert Smith, who is a billionaire, had an event at his home there. And anytime a black billionaire says, come on out to the house, you go. Not likely got that many of them. And last night I was in Baton Rouge speaking to the Southern University alumni for their conference, and so I was glad to speak with them. They're doing some great things there in terms of increasing their giving and also trying to increase their enrollment there as well. So I appreciated that and glad to be here. Your pastor reached out to my frat brother Lamel Morris to get me here, and your pastor was worried I wasn't going to be here. I'm like, don't worry about it, I'll be there. I'm very low maintenance, and so folks think, no, you're hot maintenance. I'm like, no, I know what I want. So I'm like, I'm good. So I'm like, we'll be there. So glad to be here, glad to be back in Atlanta. As he mentioned, of course, many folks have come up to me all across the country who are fans of TV One's News One Now. Folks set their morning schedule around and workouts around watching the show. And folks were quite upset when it was canceled. And the last show was in December, so the last several months I've been working on other projects, and then on September 4th we'll be launching a daily digital show, which allows us to be able to do very similar to what we did before, but this time by being digital we can actually reach even more folks. All my California folks are happy because we were on at 7 a.m. It was 4 a.m. there. And they were getting up real early to watch the show, but we're going to be live streaming the show 6 p.m. Eastern, and then restreaming it at 10 p.m., 2 a.m., 6 a.m., then 10 a.m. And folks have asked, well, why do that? Because, you know, it's easier with television, but the reality is there were people who didn't have TV One, who didn't have cable, who were unable to see the show. There were folks who have seen my coverage in Africa, in the Caribbean, in Europe and other countries, who also couldn't be able to see the stories that we often talked about. And the reality is, when you look at what's happening in our country over the last 7 months, it has been frustrating to see the number of issues taking place that mainstream media routinely has ignored. There were things that we talked about every day that other folks didn't, because we were talking directly to black people. And we're living in a moment where, and I've said this consistently all across the country, that we cannot be in a position where we as African Americans are asking somebody else to tell our story. We are 25 years away from being a nation that's majority people of color, and in many ways we are losing a number of our institutions. And if you want to see a people perish, then you take their communication instruments. When you look at the number of black-owned television stations at an all-time low, radio stations as well, look at what's happening with black newspapers. When you look at many of our black websites, most of them are focused on entertainment and gossip, and not actually news and information. And so that's one of the reasons why we are doing that. And I've even had people come up to me and they say, well, man, it'd be great if you could go back to CNN, or how about MSNBC? And I said, look, I appreciate the 6 years I spent there, but the reality is, I don't control that. And what you don't control, then you don't control what people get to hear and the folks that get to see. And so I think a lot of times, if we really want to study our history, I mentioned this last night, Gerald Horne has a great book on Claude Burnett and the Associated Negro Press, which he also calls the Jim Crow Paradox. There are many of us, we are so interested in being a part of something larger, something mainstream crossing over, and what we realize is that while we are desiring of that, we're actually killing what is ours. And so as a result, we had thriving black newspapers, thriving institutions, yet with integration, we then said, well, now we don't have to read our own newspapers. And so now we are complaining what the Land Journal Constitution doesn't do and what local stations don't do, when we had instruments that actually were covering our stuff on a regular basis. And so when we launch Roland Martin Unfiltered September 4th, we'll be doing that. You can go to RolandMartinUnfiltered.com and get more details, join our fan club as well. Because here's the other piece which is important, is that we also have to fund our own initiatives. What has often happened too often, when you look at our major institutions, our HBCUs, you look at our media institutions, you look at even banking institutions, we're asking other folk to fund what's ours. And then we wonder why they dry up. Yet when we fund what is ours, that's how they would remain strong. I had a conversation with the new Supreme Alpha Kappa Alpha. They honored me at their recent boule, and she told someone, she said, the difference between the Divine Nine fraternities and sororities is that they don't ask corporate America for money, they fund their own. Now see, I know that's a little rough for some folk in here, because you're hearing that, and let me repeat that again. They don't ask corporate America to fund their programs, their members fund their own.
Yeah, that's right.
The only reason the black church has been able to speak truth to power is when we fund our own. We cannot be in a position moving forward where we're asking somebody else to fund our freedom. Somebody else can't fund your freedom if those are the very people who are keeping you from freedom. And so we must be mindful of that. And so, again, I look forward to that and look forward to coming back here. Let me get right to the task at hand. Earlier, the scripture was read, so no need to go over that again, but I do want you to bookmark that. And so I was contemplating what I want to talk about. Well, first of all, I don't write speeches, I don't write sermons. God simply gives it to me, and I just go from there. And so as I was on the plane, thinking about what I wanted to say, what kept coming back to me was this: America is in need of a spiritual realignment. America, and for the purpose of this, I'll say including Black America, is in need of a spiritual realignment. And let me be clear, there's nothing about cars that I care for. It's a vehicle to get me from one place to the other. I really don't understand people's fascination with cars. There are some folk who will wash their car every single day. I went a year without washing my Navigator and did not care because it did not do anything for me to get me from one place to the other. I remember growing up, and my brother and I, we had a Hyundai. We were in college. We went to Texas A&M together, and he said, "Man, check the oil." I was like, "What?" And so he's like, "Look, you got to know how to check the oil." I said, "No, I'm gonna make enough money so somebody else can check the oil. That ain't what I do. Okay, I know my gifts. Okay, if you can't set up your phone, you can't take a selfie, you can't set up your DVR, I got that. I don't do cars. That ain't what I do." And the reason that's important now, my wife, on the other hand, she loves all that stuff. She goes to Home Depot and is happy. If I go to Home Depot, I got an attitude. I ain't trying to fix nothing. I'm not trying to change nothing. I'm just being very serious. Y'all think I'm joking. You know, your owner of the Falcons, he might have been one of the co-founders of Home Depot. I don't care. I'm not fixing stuff. I prayed to God to let me make enough money where I can call somebody else to fix something. Here's why. If I start fixing stuff, that's taking food off their table. When they start being on television, that's taking food off my table. You do you, I'ma do me, everybody happy. That's just how it is. I had one woman, she got really upset because we were talking, and my wife was talking about taking the trash out and getting the tires realigned and stuff like that. And this woman said, "I'm sorry, that's what a man's supposed to do." And she was talking about how I cook and clean. I'm like, hold up, who came up with the rules in terms of who does what? Now, I said, first of all, I said, I know how to cook and clean. I said, I don't need nobody's assistance. First of all, by being able to cook, I eat what I want to eat. I ain't gonna lie, say the food good when it's not. Two, my daddy taught me how to wash clothes, my own clothes. I don't need your help. Well, in fact, my wife has washed a couple of things of mine, stuff shrunk. I said, look, I need you to stay away from my clothes. All right. You just go ahead and do all the other stuff you do. So she likes that car stuff. I don't. I can't tell you when all needs to, look, unless a light come on, I don't know. So one day we were actually coming back from vacation and we were in the car, we get in the car, and I got the radio up and I'm jamming. She said, turn the radio down. I'm like, for what? What's the problem? And so we're in the car, she goes, oh, I think the back right tire's flat. Like, got me? We pulled into a tire shop and that was exactly what it was. I was like, glad you were in the car. Because we would have been driving to the crib on the rim. Sorry. And so when it's time for the tires to be rotated and realigned, she does all that stuff. That's great, that's cool. Because she's like, look, you go do what you do, you handle your business, and do all, and I handle this. I'm like, that's how we do it. See, when you're married, as long as both of y'all agree, don't matter what the rest of the folks say outside of that, if she cool with that, go right ahead. But the interesting thing about a tire realignment is that even though you could still drive the vehicle, it actually makes it worse on your tires when you don't realign the tires, rotating and realignment. So they tell you that stuff and you think they're just trying to get over, but the reality is that stuff does make a difference on the wear and tear of your car. And as I was thinking about that, I thought about in terms of where we are as a country. When you can be a black quarterback who has never been arrested, never been in trouble, and who protests police brutality, and then you get a white ball from the NFL in Colin Kaepernick, yet the same country would celebrate a grotesque individual who proudly proclaimed he could grab women by the vagina, kiss them however they wanted to, lie over and over and over again, and then he has the audacity, the unmitigated gall to question somebody else's patriotism.
All right.
What does it say about America when you have white conservative evangelicals who have said for 40 years it's about morals and values and character, yet they will give cover and explain away anything and everything this individual does, including snatching children out of the arms of mothers on the border, to the point that when some of the kids have been returned, they didn't even recognize their parents because they were so young.
That's right.
Yet these same white conservative evangelicals want to still practice slaveholder religion and then say that they actually believe in Jesus Christ more than anybody else. Yet when I listen to what they say and when I watch what they do, I don't see Jesus anywhere in any of that. When I see certain white female pastors who actually made their name and their money are preaching to black people, align themselves with somebody who has an agenda and does not speak to black people, and then give cover to that particular person, all I'm saying is you better be real careful of prosperity pimps who simply are coming in a black pulpit trying to tell us what is needed, when in reality their true colors will be shown. Some of y'all, when you get home driving, it's going to hit you, prosperity pimps. It's going to hit you with the load. It says something about a country when we say, God bless America, we wave the flag and we play the anthem, yet when you look at our public policy, they're using voter suppression tactics to keep folks from actually voting. How can you have white conservative Christians praise a party that is against folks from voting on Sunday? Because they say they care about souls, but they can't stand when souls to the polls happens during election season. See, what I'm trying to get you to understand is that there's always been two Americas. The one America that's on a sheet of paper and the one America that's in reality. And see, for many folks who don't look like us, they live in that fictitious America that is based upon how everything is great, everything is wonderful. Yet those of us who are African American for 398 and a half years, we have experienced another kind of America that's not quite the same. See, they get excited when somebody who's orange yells, "Make America Great Again." When if we really wanted to nail them down and narrow that down to say exactly what decade are you talking about when you said America was great, I can probably show you it wasn't too great for folk who look like that.
Yes, all right.
But see, it's not just folks who are white conservative evangelicals. It also applies to those of us who are African American, because when we talk about who is in need of a spiritual alignment, I can show you all across this country any number of churches that have opened their doors on Sunday and literally the walking dead has walked in, praised in dead pews, preached from dead pulpits, and then walked out to dead cars to go back home to dead houses. Oh, I know that make a lot of y'all uncomfortable. Let me be real clear. Okay, my wife, Reverend Jackie Hood Martin, she was ordained 24, 5 years. She went to seminary. She got all the papers, all that sort of stuff. God has given her a great spirit of comfort. She can pray with you. She can lay hands on you. She can talk to you. She can counsel you. That ain't me. God has given me a spirit of discomfort. My job on television and newspaper on the radio to make folk uncomfortable. When you see them squirming across from me, there's a reason Fox News don't call me, because they know how I roll. See, some of y'all have that look right now of folks who like to debate on television. Some of y'all real uncomfortable right now. Some of y'all do what I call a butt dance, when you're in that chair, they get a little heated, and you start moving, and you really want to get up and leave right now, but you don't want to get called out, because then I will call y'all asking where you're going. So I'm just letting you know right now, it's going to get a little uncomfortable in here. I might be, as Freddie Haynes say, bowl down your alley, sit in your pew, but it's all good. The pain going to be over real soon. Because see, I want you to understand that God has given me the spirit of discernment. And then when I walked in here and when I saw certain folk, when Joshua was singing, when the men were singing, some folks were not budging. That's right. See again, when the previous folks who were speaking, they were talking about praise with every fiber of your being, with your mouth and your body. There were some dead bodies in this room. See, I'm just trying to let you know, see, it's a little hard for us to talk about what America needs to do and what needs to happen when it comes to the church body, when the church body also is unwilling to get outside of its rigid position and then not step outside of the church house. Oh, I know that some folks are like, why did I have to come to church this Sunday to hear this speaker? Because see, it bothers me when a whole lot of folk come up to preachers and say, Pastor, it sure would be nice if you could talk to this person on my job, and you somehow want the pastor to drive to your job, have a conversation with your co-worker, when it's your responsibility to disciple them and invite them to church. And I want you to ask yourself the question, how many of you, if you really want to be honest, raise your hand. How many of you have actually in this month invited at least one person to come to this church every Sunday? That's all I'm saying. 4 people raised their hand, and so how in the world can we talk about how we must change America and change our communities if the very people who yell and praise Jesus and sit in pews every Sunday don't themselves invite folks into the church, invite them into the worship place? How can we talk about what the unchurched are doing when the church are acting like the unchurched and not reaching out? See, I know it's a little uncomfortable, because see, what happened was everybody read this scripture where it says, if God is for us, who can be against us? And see, we all say that, and it's all great. We think it's wonderful. But see, we don't like reading what happened right before that. Yeah, that's right. Because the sentence right before that says, what then shall we say in response to these things? Yeah. Now, when you see that in verse 31, then you got to go to what was said right before that. That's right. Where it says, and we know that in all things God works for the good of those who love him, who have been called according to his purpose. For those God foreknew, he also predestined to be conformed to the image of his Son, that he might be the firstborn among many brothers and sisters. And those he predestined, he also called. Those he called, he also justified. Those he justified, he also glorified. See, that's what was said right before, if God is for us, who can be against us? See, a whole lot of us want God to be for us, but we don't want to do the work that's required to actually operate in the Spirit of God. We want God to somehow have our back, pay our bills, pay our mortgage, fix our marriage, fix our children, but then we don't want to actually operate in His will. You don't have to say preach, I can say it myself. Because see, you can't understand Romans 8:28 unless you go up earlier in Romans. It says right there in Romans 8:14, for those who are led by the Spirit of God are the children of God. For those who are led by the Spirit of God. Which means that you can't say, well, if God for us, who can be against us, if you're not operating in the Spirit of God? You got to really ask yourself, how am I operating in the Spirit of God when I leave this church on Sunday? Am I actually operating in the Spirit Sunday afternoon? Am I operating in the Spirit Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday? How am I operating in the Spirit? How am I doing what God wants me to do? How am I somehow being a real disciple if I'm not operating in the Spirit of God? See, then to understand that part in 8:14, you got to go to 8:9. Because that says, you, however, are not in the realm of the flesh or in the realm of the Spirit. If indeed the Spirit of God lives in you, stop right there. See, the operative word in that entire sentence right there is if.
That's right.
Some of y'all missed it. Let me say it again. You, however, are not in the realm of the flesh or in the realm of the Spirit if indeed the Spirit of God lives in you. That two-letter word changes the whole thing. If indeed the Spirit of God lives in you. What that means is that ain't guaranteed. See, a lot of us have been baptized. A lot of us have been Christian. A lot of us come to church and we say that, well, I love Jesus. I know Jesus. I'm a Christian. I don't need nothing else. But the question is, does the Spirit live in you?
All right.
See, if you really want to answer the question, okay, because again, you can fight this all you want to, but there are some folks sitting in these pews right now. You got another spirit going on right now. And that's why some folk don't necessarily want to speak to you because you give it off that spirit. I told y'all it ain't going to be comfortable. We have to understand what kind of spirit we have because other folk are picking up on our spirit and they're saying, I ain't trying to go near you. I don't want you in my organization. I don't want no bake. You can't bring no cake. I don't know what's in it. I don't know what you put in it. Just stay over there.
Make it plain.
And that is because if in order for you to understand Romans 8:9, you have to deal with Romans 8:5. Which says, those who live according to the flesh have their mind set on what the flesh desires, but those who live in accordance with the Spirit have their mind set on what the Spirit desires. That right there, that line, that scripture sets up the entire part of Romans chapter 8 because that really is what is the fundamental problem with many of us in our community in America.
That's right.
That we're not driven and led by spirit. We're actually driven and led by flesh. Now see, most of the times when we hear flesh, we automatically jump to sexual desires. No, flesh just means you, your body. I mean, it's all about you. What you think, what you like, what you care about. It's not just about sex or not about lust. It's about your flesh, your mind, your body, your spirit. Not his spirit, your spirit. See, we got to have to ask ourselves in terms of, okay, what do I worship, who do I worship, and what matters to me? I talked about cars. There are people who literally worship their cars. If anything happens to their car, somehow they believe their life is over. Oh my God, what happened? Here I was yesterday leaving Robert Smith's ranch, and then I'm driving to Denver trying to get to the airport, and then the tire blows out on the car. Now I'm sitting there going, I got to catch this flight to Baton Rouge in 2 hours. Now I'm not freaking out. It's a rental car. I call them, look, the tire blew out. I ain't changing the tire. I ain't got that kind of time. And so I make the phone call, they send a car out, but it's not gonna get here in time. No problem, I called an Uber. See, I wasn't tripping on the car, because it's like, got it, that's taken care of. Another car can get me to the airport. But there's some other folk in here, y'all know I ain't lying. You put all your stuff on what's on your body. The assets that are on your, yeah, you know what I'm talking about. We got folks who literally can't tithe because they spend all their money on Louboutins. We got folks who can't tithe because they're all about St. John. We got folks who can't tithe because they focus on what they're wearing on Sunday. Yet if you walked in here with an ass cloth, God would not mind as long as you are praising his name and the word. America really does need a spiritual realignment. If we were really honest with ourselves, we would start beginning to ask ourselves, am I focused on the size of my house because I'm trying to impress somebody else? See, let me be real clear. I don't care what nobody else thinks. No, I'm being very serious. I really don't care what anybody else thinks. I had somebody told me, they said, man, why are you wearing an African outfit? Because I can. They said, why? Because I'm wearing it. And I'm like, I don't care if you don't like it. I had a brother say, well, he said, man, I don't like you wearing ascots. I said, okay, you ain't wearing it. No, I really don't care. I really don't. I mean, look, my mom and my daddy can say something they don't like. Okay, don't matter. The reason I'm saying it is not that I don't care about other people. It's that I don't live for other people. My happiness and joy is not based upon whether you have it. You can sit there like a bag of rocks. I'm going to have a good time.
All right.
I really don't care really what you think. Just the other day, when I came home I was at the NAACP convention for 5 days, and I came home and I was fixing myself something to eat, and I would put this song on. And so I just started doing the alpha stroll in the kitchen. And so I recorded a quick video. And so I'm sitting here, you know, the song is going good, and I had to hit that step. And so I recorded, I put the video on social media. Folks start commenting. We had some young alphas like, he's embarrassing alpha. I said, well, first of all, let me explain something to all you young folks. First of all, who not even like members. See, some of y'all gonna catch that one when y'all get home too. I said, let me be clear. First of all, my hips work, my knees work, my legs work, my ankles work, my mind works, my arms work. And I said, and I'm a user. And folks like, well, you scared about embarrassing yourself? No, because I'm not embarrassed. Because first of all, I was flowing very well. And so folks would comment, it got like 250,000 views on Instagram and Facebook. And I had to explain to people, I don't understand where we got this concept that somehow when you get 40 or 45, I'm 49, 50 in November, that somehow you can't dance. I said, let me be clear. As long as my stuff works, I'm a dance. Because there may come a day in your life when your legs don't work. In fact, I had a woman who came on my Instagram page and she said, I had surgery. She said, I used to dance all the time, but I wish I could still do what you're doing. All I'm saying is, you cannot walk around here like spiritually dead folk saying, I can't dance, I can't shout, I can't praise. What they gonna think about me on the other side of the church? I really don't care. Let her sit over there, judge you, get mad at you. I'ma sit on this side. I'ma praise. I'ma shout. I'ma dance. I'ma have a good time. And if they say, man, how was church? It was great for me. I don't know about everybody else, but it was good for me. See, you can only think that when your spirit is properly aligned. See, it says again right here, it's not just me, for those who are led by the Spirit of God or the children of God. And see, when you are able to do that, then you understand whose you are and why you are doing what you're supposed to do. See, I'm not, Pastor mentioned, I'm really not worried about when folks go say, man, you know what, I don't know if you really should say that, because some people, your bosses may not like it. I say, well, that's fine, because the reality is, I know if I'm speaking in truth, and if I'm speaking in power, that I'm doing exactly what I was destined to do. I'm operating in His will, not mine, but in His will. See, that's why people still come up to me, and I haven't been on CNN in 5 years. I've been on one time in 5 years, and people stop and say, "You the brother from CNN?" Literally, I have not. I've been on that one time in 5 years. Brother said, "You the brother from CNN?" Because see, he is remembering something that I said a long time ago that still left an impact in his life.
Amen.
And the reason that's important is because when I was there, I was doing exactly what I was destined to do. See, there are some people who are out there, they are begging and hoping and pleading that they will somehow get picked up and be on one of these networks, when that's not what it's all about. See, earlier I said why I'm launching my own initiative, because see, people don't realize, see, when you turn on television now, and when you see Angela Rye, and when you see Paris Denard, and Michael Singleton, and Paul Butler, and David Swirling, and when you see Lauren Burke, when you see all these different people, when you see Scott Bolden, D.T. Weldon, Monique Presley, you literally are seeing black folks who I put on TV first. Follow me here. Without the black platform, they would have not had an opportunity to show what they can do. So I've actually diversified cable news more than some folks who work at cable news have done so, because I understood that you have to be able to give folks a platform to show what they can do. I even tweeted to CNN CEO Jeff Zucker, y'all can hire all the black people you have on my show. That's fine. I'm going to go get a whole new crop of black people. Y'all can hire all of them, and it's fine with me, because I'm going to go get a whole new crop of black people. See, I'm saying that is because I don't somehow believe because those platforms are larger, they're somehow better. They're just simply larger. And so my deal is, if you're operating in His will and in His grace, He will provide for you while these things are happening. You see, folks were telling me when the show got canceled, "Roland, what you going to do?" I said, well, first of all, I'm fine. They still got to pay my contract. And then, of course, when they offered me a contract and I turned it down, I said, guess what? I have some other things that are happening because offer me a better contract. See, understand, I'm not worried about even where I live right now. First of all, the house that I bought in 1999, I still own. It's paid off. My parents and my sister live in that particular house. I ain't got no problem downsizing my lifestyle. I ain't tripping on cars. I ain't tripping on clothes. Because guess what? I ain't got no house. I ain't got no credit card debt. I don't owe nobody. My cars are paid for. And so I have the freedom and the flexibility to go wherever I want, do what I do. And if I got to move into an apartment, Roland is good, because you know why? I know how to be happy in an apartment. I've been in 10,000 square feet, 5,000 square feet, 2,500 square feet. It don't matter, because I'm not living a life based upon what somebody else thinks. When we begin to return to that state of mind, living in the Spirit, God will provide, and all of a sudden things begin to change. I absolutely believe that when we look at our communities right now, we operate in this sense that somehow we are broke and destitute, when that simply is not the case. There has to be a realignment of our spiritual priorities. When I run into my man John Hope Bryan, who recently got married, founder of Operation Hope, was telling a story of how these three young brothers in Los Angeles were arguing back and forth. And John said, well, this is what I'm going to do. John said, I'm going to give you $200 and you $200 and you $200. Y'all can decide what y'all want to do with that. And so they were arguing about shoes, and but one brother, he wasn't wearing Nikes and things along those lines. And this young brother, and the two young brothers said, man, I'm going to go buy these Jordans and buy this. Man, I don't know what you're doing. And they were dogging the other brother. And so John tried to intercede by saying, wait a minute, hold up. He said, y'all need to back off the bump. And the other brother said, no, Mr. Bryan, it's good. I want them to go buy those Nikes, because I'm going to take my $200 and go buy some Nike stock. So I need fools like them to keep buying shoes for my stock to go up. See, that brother had a totally different view of what was important. He wasn't concerned with the Nike pair of shoes. He said, I'm going to buy the Nike stock, and I'm going to make more money, because the shoes going to wear off, and they're going to be old in about a year. Realign how we look at things. Realign how we look at things right now in terms of, again, what we begin to acquire and what we begin to own. See, to be perfectly honest, I'm sick and tired of black people all across America complaining about gentrification. Do you know why I'm tired of that? Because the reality is, in many of the places where we live, we used to own those homes. And what happened was our mothers and fathers and grandparents, aunts and uncles, as they began to die, handed that land over to us. But many of us didn't want to live in those places, so therefore we sold those places. And now we're complaining that somebody else is buying it. I've been saying for the longest, why are we complaining about gentrification if they know the land's for sale, we know the land's for sale? Why aren't we buying the very land that's ours, and then therefore we can develop and own it and control it? It was just here in Atlanta a few months ago where a group of African Americans launched a real estate fund where they raised $9.7 million in 7 days. They said, we are going to begin to acquire things. That's a realignment of one's priorities. See, I want us to begin to change our view because, do understand, I said earlier, 2043 will be America as a nation as a majority of people of color. Which means that we don't have time to continue playing games, because what will happen when we have demographic numbers but then have no power? See, I get folks who come to me and they say, well, I don't understand why you support charter schools. I said, because first of all, I support anything that's going to educate our kids. It can be charter, public, private, magnet, homeschool, online school. If it works, I'm down with it. Then they say, well, that's going to kill traditional schools. I said, no, traditional schools are killing many of our kids' brains by putting them on suspension. I said, by not teaching them, by graduating them and they can't read. I said, I simply cannot defend failure. See, that is a realignment of one's priorities. I simply can't operate anymore where we sit around, complain and whine about what should happen, what could happen, and not do something about it. There's a desperate need for a spiritual realignment. Now, how do you begin to realign yourself? First of all, you got to accept the reality that you are not in control of your destiny. Why do I think there are a lot of us who are walking around right now spiritually dead? Because you are living a life where you have been operating outside of His will. You have married folk you were not supposed to marry. You have moved into houses you were not supposed to move into. You have bought things you were not supposed to buy. In fact, you might be at this church and you ain't supposed to be here. No, let me explain that. See, some people are like, okay, my God, what did he just say? Because I was talking to a preacher once, and matter of fact, my wife and I were going through marriage counseling, and the pastor of my parents' church, the Methodist church in Houston, we were talking about mega church, and he said, well, I got to figure out what I'm not doing right. I said, wait a minute, didn't you just tell me that when you got to this church, y'all had X number of members who couldn't even meet y'all budget? Now y'all have 300 fewer members and you're meeting a larger budget? I said, that means you got rid of some dead weight that shouldn't have been here. See, again, I know y'all like, okay, I can't believe he's saying that. What I'm trying to say is we have to accept the reality that if we don't add those 4 critical words to the end of all of our prayers, nothing matters. If it's in your will. See, it's amazing how we pray for things. We pray for stuff all the time. We never say, if it's in your will. If it's God's will. See, we've made mistakes. And if we actually begin to ask ourselves, why did that not work out? Because God said, well, you wanted it. I let you have it. I didn't say it was for you. See, let me explain it again. See, when we read scripture and we say, God will give you the desires of your heart, that does not mean it's actually for you. God is saying, okay, if you want that bad, I'm going to give it to you. I'm going to let you have it. Now, I don't mean I told you to take it, but I'm going to let you have it. And then when it fails, we go, God, what happened? I didn't tell you it was for you. I was giving it to you, but that was your desire. What we have to then begin to do is literally change our understanding of, are we fully operating in His will? And begin to reassess every aspect of our life where there's failure to say, God, should I be doing this? Do you want me doing this? Do you want me working here? You may say, well, yeah, but that job is paying me $30,000 more. God said, yeah, but I know what's on the other side of that $30,000.
Yeah.
See, again, we are operating in the flesh, but that's $30,000 more dollars. And God's like, yes, but it's not in my will. And see, that's hard for a lot of us to have to embrace. Because, see, we're a bunch of control freaks. We think we got this. It's the hardest thing for us to say, God, is this for me? And it's hard for us to accept no. See, God has told me no on many occasions. God, I want to go for this job. It's not ain't for you. It would look great. Not for you. God, I want to date this person. No, she ain't for you. She's nice and wonderful, but she ain't for you. This is who I have for you. Why? Because see, I know what's going to happen 10 years from now. You can't see what's going to happen 10 years from now. So I'm going to position you right now to be with somebody who can handle that thing 10 years from now. Because you get with this person, she can't handle what's going to happen 10 years from now. So therefore, you're going to have more heartache. So if you listen to me, I'm going to properly align you with somebody. But if you want to go your own way, knock yourself out. There are decisions that churches have made. We're going to build us a new facility. God's like, no, you ain't ready for that. But no, we're going to build a new facility. Okay. Then folks go broke and they struggling. It's like, I tried to tell you not to build a facility. But see, we thought because we prayed over it, that something was supposed to happen. God's like, no, you didn't do it in my will.
Yeah. All right.
See, Roland speaks to that.
Yeah.
Because if you go down where he talks about the whole issue of weakness, says it right here in terms of how we deal with the issue of weakness, how we are to go to God when we are struggling with these decisions, because he then somehow can break it down to us and explain it to us. And see, but it's hard for us to admit to weakness, because we think weakness means meekness. We have been designed to be strong, and God's like, no, let me be the strong one. Give it all over to me. I got it. I just need you to submit to my authority in order to make this thing happen. And that really is one of the most difficult things for many of us. I said you got to deal with this purpose. I said you have to deal with weakness. But you also have to understand that in order for us to have a true spiritual realignment, in order for this nation to change, in order for our community to change, it literally is going to require the body of Christ to go much further, to be tougher, and more importantly, to do exactly what he called us to do.
All right.
See, I asked earlier how many of you have actually invited one person in the last month to come to church. It is an abomination that 4 hands went up. Ask yourself, as a church body, when is the last time you said, Pastor, we're going to canvass 5 blocks surrounding this church, and we're going to go door to door to talk to folks, to ask them, do they have a church home, and do they want to visit the church? How can we have buildings sitting in communities, and we are afraid of the very people surrounding the building? How can we say Atlanta must change, Georgia must change, America must change, if church folk are afraid of driving in, to talk to anybody driving into a place, and then we in a rush to get in our cars to leave a place? So then the question is, why are you here? Because if you are unwilling to talk to the very people where the church building is, then you are losing sight of really what this is, because church is not about the building. This is simply the place where we can actually meet. We should be, as the body of Christ, going outside and touching people and talking to people and reaching out to people in a very different way. While I've been sitting here talking to you, we've been live streaming on Facebook, YouTube, and Periscope, because there could be somebody of the 2 million people who follow me who doesn't go to church, who doesn't believe in God, who could somehow be touched by the word, and all of a sudden, because they turn on that phone on this very day, their lives could be changed. That's also disciple. And see, when you're operating in his spirit, when you're operating in his will, then you understand how you can impact somebody. So years ago when I was running Tom Joyner's website, blackamericaweb.com, when we launched the site, I was a founding editor. I came on 2 weeks after they launched the site. And the first thing I said is, you can't have a black website and you ain't got a faith channel. I said, that just don't go together. So I created our faith channel. And so then one day, I wrote a piece. I can't even remember what the piece was. And I got an email from a woman, and she said, for months, I've heard Tom every morning talk about blackamericaweb.com. And I've gone to the website at different times, but she said, but on this day, I decided to go to blackamericaweb.com. And then on this day, I clicked on this column that you wrote. And she said, and I read this column, and she said, I now realize that God has a purpose for my life. And I'm reading this email and I'm saying, wow, I really appreciate that. But I'm reading it further and she says, no, you don't understand. See, she said, I had already decided to kill myself. She said, I had chosen how I was going to kill myself. I chosen when I was going to kill myself. See, but it wasn't until reading this that I now understand that God has a purpose for my life, and now I'm ready to operate in his will to move forward. Now see, whenever I say that, folks are like, oh my God, that's great and wonderful. See, no, the real issue is not what she said. It's that when God gave it to me to write, I did not procrastinate, and I actually wrote it and I posted it. Not only that, had I not even put the Faith Channel on the website, there would not have been a place for the very thing that I had written. So had I not been operating in his will, there would not have been a Faith Channel. Had I not been operating in his spirit, I would not have written what he told me to write. Had I not been operating in a moment where he was leading and guiding me, I could not have written what she read on that very day, and that woman could have taken her life. Do understand, when you decide to operate in the spirit and operate following him, listening to him, letting him guide you, and then you can somehow impact somebody's life where they just choose to live, not kill themselves. They may choose to join church. They may change how they raise their family. You might save marriages. You might change people's lives if you are willing to get off of your Christian loving butt and do the hard work that is required, because you cannot read about the disciples who went out talking to people, touching people, praying with people, if you're sitting in the church building doing nothing. You can't talk about the woman with a blood problem who touched Jesus, because had Jesus not walked among the people, she could not have touched him. And so ask yourself the question, how are you walking among the people? How are you talking to the people? How are you discipling? Don't wait for the pastor to present a program. Don't wait for him to present an initiative. You as the body of Christ have the power, have the knowledge to say, Pastor, we as the body are going to do this. We are going to go out in the community. In fact, you can stay at home. We got it. Deacons, you can stay at home. We got it. We have got to somehow change this thing with pulpit to pew. And as Ella Baker said, it's pew to pulpit. We can change and realign America when the children of God act like the children of God. We can change our communities when we are operating in the spirit, when we are doing what we're supposed to do, and not being so comfortable staying where we are. If we are going to change America, change this state, change this city, change this community, change blocks, change streets, change houses, it's going to require somebody saying in that house, as for me and my house, we are going to serve the Lord. If you want to be that kind of person, I dare challenge you today when you leave here to be a better Christian than you were when you walked in. And if you're unwilling to accept this responsibility, my suggestion, say thank you very much, go find you another church home, because it's time for this church to redefine this community, redefine this city, and when you do that, then we can be completely realigned. Now it's time to go to work.
Amen. Let us remain standing. At this time, we'd like to open the doors of the church. If there's anyone who has never united with God or who wants to unite with this church, we invite you to come now, that you might be in the fellowship of God, that you might be able to do what he has called you to do in your life, that you may operate in the power of the Spirit and do what God has called you to do. Won't you come? Amen. If you've never united with Christ, we invite you to come now. If you're in a place where you don't feel that you are doing the work that God has called you to do, we invite you to come and unite with us right now.
We're living in a world where trust matters. Not just trust in the news and information we receive, but trust in who gives it to us. Media outlets are coming under vicious attack, often by politicians angry about being held accountable. Donald Trump rails on and on about fake news, even though he readily dishes it out and lies on a frequent basis. In addition, we watch and consume cable, broadcast, and digital news and see the appalling lack of diversity and inclusion, which easily shows up in the stories we don't hear about, stories we know matter. Personally, it has been tough to watch TV news over the last 6 months since the cancellation of my daily morning news show. Not because I'm not interested, but because of what isn't being discussed, and who isn't being heard, and what is happening and how it affects not just those on Main Street, but also on MLK Street. Last week, the political world was stunned when Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, a 28-year-old first-time candidate, beat longtime Democratic incumbent Joe Crowley in the New York congressional primary. Her campaign was ignored by traditional media outlets who just assumed the powerful Crowley would coast to victory. That's simply media laziness and taking the public for granted. We see that all too often. We saw it last year when traditional news outlets rushed to interview black women who hit the ground hard to elect Doug Jones to the U.S. Senate in Alabama. But how many of those same outlets would have interviewed those sisters before the election? They were struggling to have their voices heard and getting their message out to raise money to fund their endeavors on the ground. Now, I talked to them on the Tom Joyner Morning Show and TV One, But here we are today, just a few months out from the midterm elections. And where will DeWanna Thompsons and Adriana Shropshires and Latasha Browns and Stephanie James and Melanie Campbells and Rosa Clementes, where will they go to raise their voices before the election? What about the awesome work being done by many of our civil rights groups like the NAACP Legal Defense Fund and Lawyers Committee for Civil Rights Under Law? We need to hear from them daily regarding the vital work they are doing to counter the shameful efforts to deny us the right to vote. They're filing critical lawsuits. Unfortunately, they don't get as much media attention. Reverend Dr. William Barber and others are picking up the mantle of Dr. King and the Poor People's Campaign, and mainstream media is essentially ignoring the massive mobilization and direct actions nationwide. Here you have a broad coalition of folks from different races and religions fighting for the people, but mainstream media doesn't care to highlight their concerns as well as the campaign. Now look, I can go on, but you get the picture. Over the last 6 months, so many of you have stopped me in airports, train stations, on the streets, in barbershops, and at numerous events to tell me you missed TV1's News One Now and what we did every morning for 4 years mattered. I've had millennials, Gen Xers, baby boomers, preachers, teachers, CEOs, entertainers, sports figures, men and women, some in tears, tell me how much they learn each day and how vital it was to start their mornings with news and information for us and by us. That's why I'm proud, excited, and humbled today to announce that on September 4th, I will launch a daily digital show that will give a voice to the voiceless and speak truth to power on the issues of the day. This is Roland Martin Unfiltered.
He's got it. Whatever the biz, he's on it. Whatever it is, he's got the scoop, the fact, the find. And when it breaks, he's right on time and it's rolling. Best believe he's knowing. Putting it down from sports to news to politics. With entertainment just for kicks, he's rolling. It's on go, y'all. It's Roland Martin, Rolling with Roland now. He's funky, he's fresh, he's real, the best, you know he's Roland Martin now. Martin!
Pretty cool, huh? And those voices in that song may sound familiar. That is Terry Ellis and Cindy Heron of En Vogue. That song was produced by Slick, and I'm proud to have their support. Folks, Roland Martin Unfiltered will be a daily show broadcast from Washington, D.C. that will focus on news, politics, culture, entertainment, social justice, sports, education, business, and finance. If it's important to you, we'll cover it. You'll be treated to some of the top minds in education, public policy, and academia, discussing the news of the day and why it matters to us. We will also hit the road and broadcast from cities across America, holding town halls and forums to hear what the people, not just the D.C. pundits, have to say. You will see one-on-one interviews with authors, artists, and other top names going deep to get at what matters to us. We will also do something different. You won't just see it once a day. We will stream the show live and then restream it several times over a 24-hour period and make it available for video on demand. In addition, we will offer a video and audio podcast of the show. And we are in discussions with several TV stations across the country who want to air it in select markets. But folks, there's more. Roland Martin Unfiltered will also live stream speeches, summits, conferences, and other events to our audience. There are a number of things happening every day across America that mainstream media simply ignores. But because of today's technology, we will be able to bring you these events unfiltered. You can also expect to see and participate in these live events across the country, such as our town halls, one-on-one interviews, as well as pop-up events. My team has done this for the past 6 months as we have broadcast speeches, lectures, and rallies from all across the country, even major events such as Operations Hope Global Hope Forum, the 50th anniversary commemoration of the assassination of the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. in Memphis, and weekly demonstrations of the Poor People's Campaign. In July, we will broadcast live from Essence Festival in New Orleans, the NAACP National Convention in San Antonio, as well as the Jeffrey Osborne Celebrity Classic in Connecticut. Folks, this will truly be a digital experience like no other. And the great thing about Roland Martin Unfiltered, everything will be interactive. You will get to comment in real time and share your thoughts and views. And in fact, we will incorporate your videos as you talk about what is happening, the news of the day. Roland Martin Unfiltered, folks, this isn't just about me, it's also about you. This is why we want this to be powered by the people. I want to thank Lee Saunders of the American Federation of State, County, and Municipal Employees for coming aboard as our first corporate underwriter. Their contribution has been vital to get us to this point today, and we look forward to a great partnership. And I can't wait to also share with you some of the other folks we're talking to once we finalize those deals. But when I say powered by the people, that also means you. Yes, we want you participating. This show won't require a cable subscription or be hidden behind a digital paywall. We'll initially live stream the show every day on Facebook, Periscope, and YouTube and make it available to everyone for free. You'll be able to watch it anytime on your phone, your tablet, computer, or television. This is truly a post-cable digital media show. That's why I'm also launching the hashtag Bring the Funk Fan Club, where our aim is for at least 20,000 of our supporters to contribute an average of $50 a year to ensure that we will be able to deliver the news and information you want and need that is independent. We have several funding levels for those who want to give more, and your support is vital. Now, we will have advertisers, but we have to be willing to fund our own news source if we want them to be free and independent and to speak to our issues with clarity and conviction. So right now, I want you to go to RolandMartinUnfiltered.com, where you can join the Bring the Funk Fan Club and become a charter member. Now, of course, we're going to have various discounts and gifts for our charter members of the Bring the Funk Fan Club, and so we want all of you to sign up. And again, I've been saying this for years, that if we want our news, we are going to have to be able to fund it. You can looking forward to, again, discounts to merchandise and books, as well as exclusive invites to various events that we put on around the country. Plus, your name will be listed on our website as a charter member. Why must we have an independent platform like Roland Martin Unfiltered? Because that is what has gotten us through all these years in America. It was 191 years ago when the nation's first black newspaper, Freedom's Journal, wrote in their lead editorial on March 16, 1827, "We wish to plead our own cause, too long have others spoken for us." Frederick Douglass, the former slave and great abolitionist who founded the North Star newspaper, said it was, quote, "just common sense that those who suffer injustice are those who must demand redress, and thus African-American authors, editors, and orators must have their own paper with which to share their voices." It was Douglass who inspired Robert Abbott, who went on to found the Chicago Defender in 1905, a groundbreaking newspaper that battled white supremacists and segregationists and spoke on behalf of millions of black Americans and led the great migration of black folks from the South to the North. It was the great Ida B. Wells Barnett who used the power of her pen to fight against lynching, even as she faced mobs who wanted her killed. But today we're seeing fewer voices of color in radio, television, and online media, not just on the air, but also owning. Here we stand 25 years away from the nation being a majority of people of color in 2043, and we're still depending on someone else to tell our story. That, folks, can never happen. We must always be in control of our narrative. Now is the time for us to speak truth to power. Now is the time for us to control our narrative and have a voice that represents our interests and our concerns. Now is the time to fight against fake news and the folks who wish to do our community harm. I want you to go to RolandMartinUnfiltered.com for more details to become a charter member of the Bring the Funk Fan Club. And beginning September 4th, let's mark a new chapter for an independent news source that, in the words of the late, great Congresswoman Shirley Chisholm, is unbought and unbossed.